Yo, what's going on? It's that boy Fred. Welcome back to another video. Now, as you can tell by the title, we're doing a top 5 video, and it's going to be on my favorite old gen anime characters. Now, the way I decided to do this is, old gen and new gen is such weird timing. Well, not necessarily old gen, more so new gen. So I decided to I'm going to do two parts of this. I'm going to do new gen and old gen, but I decided to cut off the old gen part at about 2010. So anything from 2010 to present, I would claim as new gen because, as we all know, there are shows like Attack on Titan that was made in 2009 was when the manga started, but it got animated around 2013 and it's considered a new gen. So new gens are kind of weird, but we'll just start it from there. So yeah, we'll get right into my top 5 old gen anime characters. All right, so starting off with number 5 on my list, we're going to be going back to one of the original big 3, being Bleach, and we're going to grab my number 5 on the list, being Mr. Sasuke Aizen. Now, if you remember from my Aizen versus Madara video, I let you guys know that Aizen is definitely in my top 3 favorite characters in Bleach, and he is by far number 1 when it comes to villains. Aizen is my favorite villain out of all the anime I've watched, and that's one thing that a lot of Bleach fans hold to heart, is that Aizen is a very good villain, and he is to me. Aizen is such a well-written character. He's very different from the other villains because he's not a typical villain who always makes his presence known. He's more of a laid-back, strategical villain, if I would say so, because for the most part, you don't see Aizen on the front line like how some villains would do in other shows. Like, you'll see him, and then maybe the main character in this villain will back up for a little bit, and then they'll eventually fight again. But no, not Aizen. He makes his presence known at the Soul Society, and we don't see him again until the ending of the Arrancar arc, which then turns into the Katakuri, not Katakuri, but the Katakuri town arc. I never knew how to pronounce that town. I'm sorry, but yes, it turns into that, and then Ichigo versus Aizen towards the end of that. So Aizen comes around very late, but we always knew he was there because everything we figured out was because of Aizen. The whole Arrancar arc was literally just Aizen's army warming up for him so he can make his main show and make his presence known. So I just love Aizen all around. I love how he does things in the Thousand Year Blow arc. I love him too. He's kind of sidelined a little bit, but I mean that was expected. He was supposed to be still punished, so I didn't expect him to get a whole lot of time. But moving on to number 4, we have all the way from Code Geass, the MC himself, Lelouch v Britannia. Now, I recently finished up Code Geass and absolutely loved it. I loved every minute of Code Geass. I loved the emotional scenes of Code Geass. I loved the story. The fights were not too bad. I mean, for them to be kind of some Transformer type fights, they weren't half bad at all. I actually really enjoyed it. It was something different than, the typical old hand to hand fight. So I really enjoyed that about it. But enjoyed Lelouch so much because of the way Lelouch did things in his show. Now, of course, you can easily compare Lelouch to L, but the thing about Lelouch and L is they both are anti-heroes. They also can be just flat out called villains as well. But I feel like Lelouch at a certain point in time was looking like, I feel like from the beginning, Lelouch was he had this mindset that he wanted to make a change for the world, and he wanted the world to be a better place right off the rip. Like, even he said himself, even if he didn't have this Geass power, he still was gonna try his hardest to make this, work. And when he got his Geass power, he was willing to go to lengths to get this job done. Whether at a certain point, spoiler alert, right now, I'm gonna tell you. All right, you've been warned. Whether it's killing off, a brother, a sister, eventually father and mother, so it's like Lelouch is like, he was taking very extended measures to get what he wanted through. Now, of course, you could say the same thing for Light, but I feel like Light was just flat out, evil. I feel like even people who were helping Light out in the progress, they just got utterly just thrown aside. Like, and that was one thing I well, I wouldn't say I disliked about Light, but it proved more so that Light was more of a villain to me than Lelouch was, because at least I knew in Lelouch's heart when he would lie and say he didn't care about these people and do that, I knew he was lying, because even in the end of the show, spoiler alert again, when he dies, he lets his best friend kill him. He did all of this thing to get all this hate on him just so it can then be taken off. And Lelouch, man, I can go on and on about Lelouch. I know I was kind of all over the place right there, but I just love Lelouch, man. He's a great character. I love him to death. Now, next on my list, coming in at number 3, is going to be from the good old Naruto. You know, we have my good friend Obito Uchiha. Now, if you don't know, my two favorite characters in Naruto are Minato Namikaze and Obito Uchiha. They tend to go back and forth from number 1, but you know, I never can really just sell on one of them being number 1. So I decided to go more so with Obito for this time because he did get more screen time than Minato, so I have actually more to talk about him than Minato. But Obito, you know, in my opinion, if there's someone who's like a really well written villain, in my opinion, it's Obito as well. I think he may be on the same level as Aizen when it comes to me being written. You know, I think Aizen might have the edge when it comes to a better written villain, but Obito as a round character, I loved everything about Obito. I love the switch personalities. I love the, you know, the whole Toby thing was amazing. I love the serious Obito. I love, you know, the war arc Obito. I love the backstory of Obito. I love the, you know, Obito's reasons for doing things. You know, granted he was kind of used, but at the same time he was it wasn't his fault. Let's say that he was a 14-year-old kid that just went through a traumatic experience watching his best friend kill his lover. So it's a lot for him. Granted, he knew the true reasons of what happened. You know, it still was a burden on him, and the way he went about doing all these things, I didn't mind any of it at all. I loved Obito from start to finish. Even when we figure out like what his whole motives was, why he did all this, the backstory. I just love Obito. Obito is just like a lot of people say he's Naruto if Naruto would have went evil. You know, because Obito was a lot like Naruto. You know, especially as a kid, and then you know if things went south and Naruto decided to, you know what, I'm tired of these guys, you know, being on my bad side. I feel like Obito is exactly what that representation of Naruto would have been. You know, Obito is just one of my favorite characters of all anime. And then you know even towards the end of Naruto when Obito went over to the, you know, the good side, you know, a lot of people may dislike that, but you know I felt that it was kind of expected. You know, at least for me, I felt that Obito was something that was going to drive him back over to the other side to help him to the end. And even when he met his end, it was still like he was just a thug from start to finish. I don't know what else to say. And then I love Obito's ability. Kamui is probably like top 3 of my favorite anime abilities of all time. Like of all. Now, moving on to number 2, we have the last installment of the big 3, Mr. One Piece. We're going to be going and we're going to be talking about my good man, Roano Zoro. Now, Zoro, for a lot of people, is a top anime character of all time. Zoro is like one of the best written side characters and flat out characters all together. Because Zoro could have his own show if he wanted to by how well he's written. Like, granted, Zoro has gotten kind of sort of sidelined since the New World. It isn't very much. Like it's barely noticeable. Like, and you can still make an argument that he's getting more screen time now than he was in pre-time skip. But you know, in the manga, I would argue that now. But from where the anime is right now, I would still say pre-time skip Zoro had more shine. But that's neither here nor there because at the end of the day, he got the shine. And Zoro, the way that Oda uses him is like, it's beauty. It's just beautiful to watch and read how well this character is. Like, and then I'm a swordsman, you know, geek. So anybody that has a sword, I naturally attract towards them. Like they're the first characters I start paying attention to. That's why Bleach was such a great anime for me because it was an anime full of swordsmen. So it was right up my alley. And Zoro didn't disappoint with a unique 3 sword style. You know, not having a devil fruit, being the right hand man of the future pirate king, being such the backbone for Luffy, such a well written out character. It's just like you can't go wrong with Zoro being on a, like, if you've watched One Piece, I feel like everyone could put Zoro in a top 5 list, man. Except for the Sanji fanboys out there, then they might have beef with him. But that's neither here nor there. So let's move on to number one. Now, number one has to go to one character and one character only, and in my opinion, the greatest side character of all time. Mr. Thumbnail Shot himself, Mr. Vegeta, the Saiyan Prince. Now, Vegeta. As we all know, Vegeta be taking L's. Shut up, I don't care. Vegeta's a GOAT. Vegeta's a god. Vegeta's the greatest anime character of all time. Fight me about it. Vegeta character development like no other. Vegeta's his whole attitude is like no other. He's on the good side, but he still has that villainous side of him that gives you jumping. Vegeta, the way he talks, the way he moves around, the way he goes about things, it's different and it's so attractive. Pause, not in that way. It's attractive to a way where he can attract so much attention towards himself. And I feel like that's why the Vegeta community is better, not better, but larger than the Goku community. Because Vegeta has something that, a lot of these anime characters don't really have. And his personality is number one, if you ask me. His personality, his attitude, all that, his swagger, the way Vegeta goes about things, the way he always comes up to save the day, gets his moment of shine, gets beat up after that. That's just who Vegeta is. And that's who we've loved and accepted him for. Now, in this new chapter, he was going crazy for a little bit, but then he kind of did get beat up a little bit. But I'm saying, like, in the next chapter, next month, he's coming back strong. Oh, actually, now that I think about it, from when I'm recording this, the recent super chapter came out like 7 days ago. Y'all probably won't see this until maybe October. So, yeah, I'm recording this all the way back in August the 27th if you made it to the end. But, yeah, that's neither here nor there. Vegeta is the greatest anime character of all time. I said it here. Fight me about it. But all jokes aside, that's going to wrap up this video. I will be dropping the top 5 new gen characters probably in the coming weeks. I don't really know right now. School's kind of heavy right now. So I'll try and get that video out when I can. But be looking out for more versus battles because, that's what we're striving on right about now. But with all that out the way, I'll see you guys in the next video.